Okay, well, Craig, I'll just use your first name due to internet crazies. How's that?
That's fine. Yeah, perfect.
So this is a podcast called Miracle Healings, and guests are invited that have had miracle healings, and you are absolutely one of them. I think your story is amazing, and I think it speaks to all kinds of influences in your life for good, especially yourself, no matter what the difficulties were, and no matter how the cards were stacked against you, or even a lot of your personal situations. It was extremely tricky, I know, but I'm thrilled to have you on the podcast. I think it's important that people can hear the stories of other real life people to get some hope, because I think all of us, when we're chronic or in the dark, we deep down wonder if that recovery is possible, right? Like, we hear stories and we read books and we see stuff, but I want real life people that aren't scripted just to come on and chat. So it's going to be pretty informal. But again, thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome. Glad to do it.
Yeah, so you're a very accomplished professional, a very successful, a judge. I mean, all kinds of accolades I could throw at you, but maybe start by saying, when did it start getting dark? What was happening, or what happened?
Um, Probably the initial shock was the night before Thanksgiving. And we had been at my wife's mother's and her family. And on the way home, I was informed that my wife wanted a divorce. Going back to June of that year, things had kind of gotten toxic, and we had tried to maintain some civility between the two of us. But there were just signs that things were going south. And but the initial thing was at Thanksgiving, so I spent Thanksgiving alone with myself.
Yuck.
My my wife and daughter went to enjoy Thanksgiving with her family, and so I was left by myself. And that night, after she told me she wanted a divorce, I roamed the streets of the town I live in all night long. I couldn't sleep. I was just so shooken up. And I knew if I went back to the house, we would probably get into an argument or something. So for my own sanity and for sanity of the family, I just walked, and it was like 30 degrees. And all I had on was a light jacket. And I walked the streets crying, praying, and just distraught.
Yeah.
Fast forward, I moved out of the home for a period of few weeks. I moved back into the home just prior to Christmas. And my children, all adults, daughters and their families, were hesitant to come to the house that we usually celebrate Christmas every year because of the uncertainty of what it was going to be like. But we managed to get through that. And then right after New Year's, 1st of January, I then moved out of the home into an Airbnb, and I lived in the Airbnb until I went to, till my event of February 25th. And then after that, I lived with my daughters, switching households until Easter Sunday, when I made the trek to Utah and enrolled in the bridge that started that Monday right after Easter.
And that's where I met you. I remember meeting you then, and I remember I mean, just the look in your eyes and the kind of the depth of that. That was an extremely dark time for you. I mean, I could feel that from across the room. And even then, that opening night, as we chatted, you weren't completely sure you were going to make it. I mean,
Right.
you had a little ember glowing for sure, or you wouldn't have come. But yeah, I remember that being a pretty precipitous evening. Is that accurate? I mean,
Yeah. And then Steve told his story that night. and I was in tears. I had heard his story before. Him and I had talked when I was searching for a place, and him and I had talked with my family. And his story just brought back the memories of what I just went through. And even though I'd been in outpatient treatment for a month, uh, the loneliness and the uncertainty and what my future might hold was still up in the air. And I was 67-year-old man searching for life's meaning and whether life was worth continuing to live. Even though I'd been in some therapy for 4 weeks, but I would say that was a Band-Aid. It got me through those few weeks, and my daughters were with me the whole time. So I was not out of somebody's physical reach, but I was still struggling, even though I'd learned some tools, but just the heartache and everything that I'd been through, and now the heartache of what I put my family through, was still a heavy burden to carry around with me. And so, yeah, you're right. When I first came, I was like, what's this going to be like? Who's going to fix my problem? Is the problem fixable? And do I even want to be fixed? So, yeah, and then Steve telling his story was just like, whoa, this is too close to home. And this is just what I just experienced not more than a month ago. And I don't know if I was ready to handle it. And one of the staff people came up to me and gave me a big hug when they noticed I was crying. And I just felt safe for the first time in weeks. I felt safe that someone actually maybe cared.
Yeah, I mean, I love that, because anyone on the bottom, you're also looking for someone, even if they're still messy, you want someone slightly above you to help, because I don't trust anybody on the bottom when I'm on the bottom. I want somebody who's kind of learned and gone through things. So Steve, I mean, having him really inspire you, the reason that I felt like it was important that we do a podcast with all of these stories, over so many years, was to say, yeah, there are other people out there that need Craig, that need your story. I mean, there are people, I mean, right now saying nobody could possibly understand what it's like to be a professional man that's very accomplished in his 60s with a beautiful family, that somebody comes in and drops a bomb on and says, reinvent your life. I mean, that's not something that we ever think or fantasize about. As we think about those years of our life, we think about happily ever after and retirement and vacations and family trips and golf and grandkids. And, we don't think about, hey, reinvent everything, I'm leaving. Or this structure that you're so used to, for so many years, it's leaving you and you've got to figure this out on your own. And man, being pushed out of that proverbial nest as an adult is awfully tricky. I mean, it's awfully tricky. So especially as men, I don't think, I'll speak for myself, I won't speak for you, but I think men are considered to be less emotional and more resilient when it comes to things of the heart. My personality and my experience is that we might have a tougher shell, but once it's cracked, we get in trouble in a hurry. I mean, I can say that for myself, and also, I mean, hundreds of guests and, patients over the years. So from the outside, I'll bet you a lot of people thought you had it all figured out, and there you were wandering the streets of your hometown. It's crazy.
Right.
So
for those who want a little bit of background about myself, I graduated in 1981 with my law degree. Started practicing law January of 1982.
Wow.
And for 30 some years in my town that I started my practice in, I was involved, I was on the school board. I was on the city council between those 20 years of public service. I was president of every club in Ankeny that you could dream of. Very active. I was very involved with my kids. I coached them. And from the outside, people would say, this guy's the version of success and has everything going for him and well liked, has a great reputation. In 2011, the governor's office contacted me about going to work for the governor to restructure an agency. And so I took a sabbatical from my law practice for 2 years and went to the governor's office and rebuilt an agency that had been through a lot of turmoil. And in that process, I met a lot of people that I've grateful I came in contact with. And then in 2013, I was appointed as a judge, and then I left the law practice for good and have been a judge ever since then. My career was filled with fixing people's problems. People didn't come in to see me to chat. They came to see me to fix whatever legal problem they were facing. Some bigger than others, but to them, every problem's a big problem.
Sure, sure.
And when you're fixing people's problems all your career, your own problems become pushed away. You neglect them. You believe you're bigger than the problem because you fixed everybody else's. So when your problems come your way, you either shove them down and try to ignore them, or you get help. I never got help. Never thought I had a problem. But in the last couple of years of being a judge, the mental stress of just the practice. I mean, I practice 60, 70 hours a week. I was in the practice. Being a judge, you're hearing everybody's problems, making decisions that are affecting people's lives, taking kids away from parents, divorcing people, dealing with the worst of the worst, so to speak. And you have nobody to tell that story to. You can go talk to another judge, but he's dealing with the same issues you are. So you sit there and tell the same story. That isn't, I mean, that's just telling a story. It doesn't get any help.
Right, right. It's true.
And then I retired in 2022. I went through a bad experience with a knee replacement. It didn't go well. So instead of being up and running around in a couple months, it was 8 months. And the pain of that was wearing, and I wasn't able to be active like I was used to. So that compounded what I thought retirement was going to be. It's going to be this great time. And then in June, my wife and I were in Florida, and I talked about what we were going to do in retirement. She's a lot younger than I am, and she basically came out and said, I'm not retiring. You go do your thing, and I'll join you once in a while. And I'm thinking, this isn't what I worked for all these years, 40 years of a career, putting aside money and thinking what I'm going to do and retire, going to travel. And then on February 25th, we'd been to some counseling, and my wife had said that there was no hope to the counselor, that she wasn't buying into anything, that I'm not perfect. I made mistakes, but she just couldn't tolerate life together anymore. So on February 24th, I'll just start the story there. I was living in an Airbnb, and the people who I was staying with were friends of mine, and I painted their basement that night. They wanted me to paint their basement.
Okay.
So I stayed up till about 2 a.m. painting. And for the last month, I'd been reaching out to my wife saying, I'm lonely. I was cooped up in a little bedroom in their house, no one really to talk to. That's when the spiraling really started, but I didn't recognize.
Well, I mean, like you say though, when you're doing well and things are going well and you're distracted with everybody else's lives, that makes sense though. And I think a lot of whether you figured out an important place in society like you have, or whether you haven't, you still oftentimes get embroiled in discussions about politics or the economy or religion or even if it's not something as good as you had. And I agree. I think without regular self-assessment or regular like intimate assessment, we get blindsided, maybe unnecessarily. This is an old cheesy story, but used to use it in consulting a lot. There's an old executive and this brand new executive walking along the beach, and just after an important meeting and talking about strategy, and as they're talking, this wave washes up over this young executive's shoes. Dirt and sand and salt just ruins his shoes, and he dances a little bit, and too late, and he stands there. Oh my gosh, dang it. And he looks up, and this older executive's about 10 yards up the beach, just completely dry. And he looks and he goes, man, how did you got out of the way? And this seasoned executive says, how long do you think that wave's been coming? And it's years, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
a little bit of foresight. But a lot of us, though, we like you, like me, like millions of others, you get your head put down and you get busy, and man, you get your shoes washed a couple times, and it's really abrupt.
right. Yeah,
So
and you're not when you're in the heat of the battle, like I was for all those years of just the grind. You don't realize your mental health is suffering. Um, when I got to the bridge, they talked about self-care.
yeah,
And to me, self-care was brushing my teeth, taking a shower, health hygiene. It's like, what's this self-care stuff? I mean,
and
really?
then jumping back into the grind. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, who's got time for self-care? All the time I got is work, 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 and play hard. When you're not working or you're working at home or doing something, I mean, it's just constant 24/7 churn.
right.
And you don't realize what is really going on in your subconscious and in your head. And then you feel like a failure.
Yeah,
I mean, when your wife of 20 some years tells you that you're no longer someone that she loves and not want someone to be in harmony with, you feel like you're a failure, you feel rejected, which just adds on to the mental thing. Here's a person who's fixed everybody's life for years, and people came to me because of my success, and then I can't even fix my own problems at home. And so you take it personal, and as much as I tried to fix it, it got worse. And so uh, yeah, it's surprising how many people are walking around. That's the tragedy, and part of my story and why it's so important, and why Dr. Brooks believes like I do, is that men feel like it's a weakness, that we are not a man if we tell somebody that we're hurting.
yeah,
So we walk around with our shield around us, pretending to be a person we're not really are inside. And we give this impression that everything is hunky dory and things are going well, but in the inside, things are just falling apart and your body is just in shock. But you keep putting this outward appearance, and lo and behold, who am I going to go tell that I got a problem? Well, when that word gets around that Craig's got an issue and he can't even handle his own problems, how is he going to handle my problems? So
right.
we all live in a secret. And we just haven't been taught or felt like it was acceptable to share our innermost problems that are going on. And we all have a stigma. If someone tries to commit suicide or someone's in depression, they're crazy, they're sick, they're not capable, they're not basically an inferior human being.
Right.
Well, let's give them medication. Let's treat them with meds, and so they won't be crazy and go do something stupid or hurt somebody. Or we'll stick them in a psych unit for a while and over medicate them, and they have no idea what's going on. So people don't want to talk because they're afraid that's what's going to happen to them. Someone's going to commit me if I tell somebody that I had thoughts of suicide. Holy cow, we got to get him to the psych unit and find out what's going on.
Right.
Um,
Oh, it's
so
true.
so as men, we're very silent, and we don't have really close friends that we can really confide in. We have friends, but we don't really have someone who we can just sit down and just say, "Hey, let me just pour out my innermost struggles with you." Well, I don't have time for you today, or I don't know how to deal with that. You need to go talk to a professional. I mean, so what do? You just keep it inside of you.
Right. No, it's true. It's true. And so, and then that breaking point comes like it did with you and like it does with, millions and millions of people. And then once you crack and break, I mean, I'm glad you came to the bridge, but tell us how that darkness, I mean, all that cumulative nastiness, you finally bounce off the bottom. Tell us, like, I mean, it's called miracle healings for a reason, right? Here we are talking about your success in putting a life and a mind and some perspective together after all of that. How did that start? Like what were some of the catalysts and how did you move through some of those spaces? Because I think a lot of people want to know, okay, great, I'm willing and I want to, but I don't know if it's possible. I don't know how to do it. So how did that healing journey kind of bounce for you?
Okay. So just put this in perspective. On February 25th, I took my life. I hit the lowest of lows. I was told we were supposed to take a family trip with my daughter for her graduation present, and that trip got canceled for me. Everybody else was going. I was left behind. And without any premeditation, I went through a series of events that I took my life. And my story is 48 hours, 6 miracles. And the only reason I'm talking to you is because of those 6 miracles that took place within that first 48 hours to bring me back to life. So as I'm in the hospital, and my daughters were just amazing support. So through this rock bottom, I finally realized how important my daughters were in my life and how much I needed them. And some friends that I didn't really think were my friends reached out. But the doctor said, "Hey, we got to have a plan for this guy. We're just not going to put him back in society." And my daughter said, "No, he's not going back into society, because what he's going to do is he's going to go back to work, and he's going to repeat this process of
Yeah.
trying to avoid the issue by just staying busy." So part A of that plan was I went to outpatient therapy, but my daughters weren't convinced that that was going to be enough for me. And Dr. Brooks knows that he talked personally with my daughter a couple times, as well as some other staff people. She was very diligent in trying to find the right place for me to go.
Lots of questions from her.
Lots of questions. And my daughter is very smart. She's 44 years old and very successful in her own ways. And she didn't want a sales pitch. She wanted to hear, how is my dad going to be helped?
Right.
And as we were sitting there and listening to the staff people talk to my daughters, and then Steve ultimately talking to our family about his experience, it just came as clear as bell. I have to go to this place. I'm not ready to go back into society. I'm not strong enough. I'm not healthy enough. I don't have the mental wherewithal to battle my spouse, uh, who was a very controlling person, and my kids just felt like I was going to be whipsawed and end back up in the garage if I didn't get more help. So making that decision to go to the bridge was a miracle in of itself, that we first found it on the internet. Two, that we were able to actually talk to some people that knew what they were talking about, and someone who had experienced it themselves and could verify that this was a healing experience for him.
Yeah.
So when I went there, and Dr. Brooks can testify to this, I go there with the idea that, hey, these are all professionals. They're going to fix my problem, because that's all I've done all life is fix my problems. You go to a doctor because you want to be fixed, healed. So that's what you do to professionals. They're going to fix you.
Yeah.
And I think it was like day 4, I had a chat with Dr. Brooks and say, Dr. Brooks, this ain't happening. I've been here 4 days and I'm not fixed at all. In fact, I'm feeling very confused. And we had a challenging discussion. And it came to my realization that no one can fix my problem. And the healing process will not take place until I'm willing to fix myself. So the biggest thing I learned in that process, and I wish it would have been a little quicker with the mindset than when I went there. But once that mindset changed, it was like a new world was revealed to me, that these people aren't going to fix my problem, but they are going to help me through the journey of fixing my problem.
Right. Right.
And they're going to give me tools, and they're going to give me some advice. They're going to give me some guidance. And that's when the healing started to take place, was when I first discovered that there's no magic wand, there's no magic word, that I'm cured and I'm never going to have these issues again. And so for the next 2.5 weeks, I was very diligent. I took notes. I listened to every word, hung on every word, challenged sometimes the guest speakers on their words, because I was trying to figure out, how can I be a better person and how can I be stronger for myself and for those who I love,
Yeah.
and not have them to worry that, is dad going to be a repeat offender and next time he'll be 6 feet under instead of walking the streets.
Right.
So that's how the healing started.
Well,
And
oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
it was that revelation of being alerted to this place called the Bridge in Utah, that somehow I'm going to get a benefit out of this. And so it was a step of faith, but I went there open-minded that I want to be helped, but I didn't go there with the right mentality of how it's going to get right.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's hard to, though, because I mean, in the media and even in medical offices, we float this idea that pills fix this, or therapy fix this, or ECT or ketamine, or a technique or meditation, or finding your consciousness, or love, or organic vegetables, or a magnetic bracelet, or whatever. But I call that the mistake of trying to fix an inside problem with outside modalities, right? You have
right.
to inside problems with if it's an inside job, you need inside technique. If it's an outside job, you need outside technique. I mean, if you're allergic to chocolate, don't stop eating chocolate, and you've solved that problem. But if you're addicted to depression, for example, all the pills in the world, all the therapy in the world usually isn't enough. You have to do something on the inside of yourself to manipulate and move, those perceptions around. Sometimes,
Right.
I mean, most of the time, and I'll say this because it's not fun, but most of the time you can't solve those things with the same identity. You actually have to change an identity piece, or maybe the whole identity, to get through that stuff. I think back in my own life, mistakes and heartaches, and the skills I learned in junior high didn't help much in high school. I had to develop new ones, and the ones I developed in high school didn't work that great when I went to college. I did develop new ones, and then those didn't work that great at all when I got married. Especially when I got divorced, nothing worked, and now I'm going to go get 2 jobs. Well, that didn't really fill the hole in my heart and my soul either. It's just this constant development. So the thing that I love about your story is, I mean, your age, you're wise, you've been through a lot, you've had a lot of success, but still, I mean, circumstances came along to say you've got things to learn. All of this, old Craig, you're going to have to redevelop. You're going to have to change an identity to move through this stage too. So as we move as humans, I mean, I think for you, I'll toot your own horn because I don't know if you will. I think there's an old quote. I think it's Mark Twain. I might get this wrong, but he says something like, most opportunities that come at us look like they're dressed in overalls and and seem like hard work. And I love that. I think I might have slaughtered it a little bit, but that's pretty close. And if you're willing to shift from fix me, where are the magic wands, where's the pills, where's the needles, into wow, I've got some developmental issues to sort out. I've got to dig into Craig. When you make that shift and you mean it, now life changes in a hurry, because all of a sudden you're in the driver's seat and you're scared. I mean, I've certainly been there. And you realize that when you make mistakes, they're your own. And the speed is up to you, and the accelerator and the brake and the clutch, right? There's so much that, and you're the one with your hands on the steering wheel, all the victimization and my ex-wife and this, I mean, all that stuff kind of fades, and you're like, oh no, this is my job. What about my feelings? That's my job too. What about all the bad things that happened in my past? I have to forgive all that and move. That's my job too. What isn't my job? And the answer is it's your job. And so for you, when you meant it and you made that shift and you started to work, I mean, really, you started to use that 40% of your brain that we all have to reassess the other 60%. When you started to really assess Craig and make adjustments and to develop, that to me is where really that miracle healing started and went in a hurry. I mean, it wasn't that long before your language and your perception and your personality and your excitement changed. I mean, to the point where I'm not sure I want to live, to I want to be in charge of an endowment to help people in whatever state they are. And I want that to mean something. I want to leave a mark on the world to, with other people that are struggling. I mean, that chasm that you bridge, sorry for the cheesiness, but that chasm that you were able to bridge is vast. I mean, that's something that some people don't get through in a lifetime. They still die searching for relief, for something to placate them. But I think the miracle came, yes, the darkness, and yes, the rescue, for sure. Your life, was rescued. But when you decide to work, when you decided to absolutely roll up your sleeves and not apologize and move, I mean, really move. That's when I saw, and your providers, everybody saw, it's like, holy cow, this guy's really moving. Like he is shifting and changing a lot. So that's what isn't as common as it should be, because people want someone else to do that. But that decision, to me, I watched you change a lot. Is that accurate?
We all have things that happen in our past. And the thing that I always heard from people is, well, that's in your DNA, or that is what you learned. And so we all have an excuse. I'm going to blame my father because I was never good enough. So I'm going to live the rest of my life never being good enough, and I'm not perfect, and I'm a failure. And I'm going to blame my father for that for the rest of my life until I die. And that was me. I mean, I blamed all my problems on somebody else and didn't take, responsibility for it myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when I'm out there and I find this mindset has to change, that I can no longer blame people. I take responsibility. And what am I going to do to change this cycle?
Yeah.
And when I realized that no one's going to fix me, and they're going to peel me like an onion to get to the layers of my insecurities and why I think, and you really pour that out to people who really care and who hear what you're saying and don't point fingers, don't blame somebody, don't sugarcoat it. And then when they tell you, Craig, that's an issue. Now, how we deal with it, and what are you going to do with that issue? Are you going to let that still bog you down the rest of your life, or are you going to rise above it? So everything had to shift for me. I never loved myself. Like self-care. What's self-care? What's love yourself? I don't have time to love myself. I'm loving everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when the providers broke me down and realized to me that I never learned how to love myself, to accept who I am for who I am, and quit trying to get affirmation from people, the pat on the back for my uh, reason to live, and get it from myself, to take ownership of myself and to say, you know what? I don't care what people think. I'll run the streets naked. I don't care what they think.
Right. Right.
If if I love what I'm doing, that's all that matters is what I feel about it.
Right.
Now there's appropriate actions. Obviously, I'm not going to run naked in the streets, but the idea is, Craig became a different person out there. Uh, when I realized that I could love myself and I could make a mistake, and that episode is like changed my life, changed my perspective. I mean, I jumped on a bed and didn't care about how it looked, what people thought. It's just being me.
Right.
And
Right.
I was a very tender-hearted person when I was young. My mom was a very tender-hearted person. I had a lot of her attributes. People used to tell my parents, your son is the most tender-hearted, caring person in life. And then I lost that. And I found it. I found it again when I was out there at the bridge, that I found this tender-hearted person that I used to be, that I just basically shoved away and became somebody that I wasn't for all the wrong reasons, and blaming everybody else why I lost that. So the whole perspective, the healing, Dr. Brooks, started with that day that you and I met. And then the providers that showed me there is light at the end of the tunnel. And
Yeah.
when that light became bright, I ran.
Mm.
I ran for that light because I was tired of the life that I had. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to save my marriage. And by all rights, it's probably not good that I saved this marriage, because that's some of my issues. But since I've been home, am I lonely? Yes. Do I miss affection? Yes. But I can walk around the block at night and talk to myself and just say, you know what? I love myself. I love what I'm doing. God has a plan for me. Uh, there's a reason why I'm still alive. Now let's go find it and do it with a smile on my face, and know that there are other people out there who went through what I did, or potentially going to put their family through what I did. And if I can stop that from happening, then that's my calling. And so that's where you and I hit it off after that. And it was like a revelation. I mean, you shared some stuff with me that you hadn't shared with other people. And it just felt like you and I hit a bond to say, you know what? We got two peas in a pod here. We come from different walks of life, but
Right.
the end goal is we want to help people be a different person.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, agreed. And I think you touched on something very critical. I mean, there's all kinds of cliches and old songs, but once you really do truly love yourself, you also have to love yourself in spite of a whole bunch of flaws that you know better than anybody else on this planet, right? I mean, I know my insecurities, at least most of them, and my fears and my trepidations and my, the times when I'm not courageous and my lacks of faith. I mean, I know that about me. And I break my face against those things. So loving me, and when you know everything you know about yourself and you love you, it's this license to go out and say, we're all pretty messy. We're all on our best days, pretty broken humans. And if I can love me, knowing everything I know about me, I can certainly extend that to everybody else. And I think that's why that's the key, to go out and say, well, now I can love me, and I want to help anyone else struggling. We're not down here that long. Wherever anybody thinks we go afterwards is up for all kinds of debate, but we just don't get to be here that long. I consider this life down here on earth, we're all away at camp. We have to go home at some point, somewhere at some point, but we don't get to stay that long.
Right.
And so while we're here, my heavens, let's make a dent for the good. Like, let's search out the weak and the dreary and the downtrodden and people groping in the dark for a better way of life. Let's find them. Like let's help them. Like let's jump in the soup and help them see that they're just so close if they would just shift a couple of, of critical pieces. But I mean, your transformation has been amazing. I mean, from literally the darkest of the dark, in spite of all you had in professional and family and all that to attempt your life, and then be rescued by those miracles that you talked about, those 6 miracles in 48 hours. And now have your entire focus shifted. Well, now how can I contribute? Rather than that was awesome, I'm going to go fishing. Well, maybe you will go fishing, but the focus isn't what about Craig? Now the focus is how do I help everybody else? And I think that's why the world needs and deserves to hear your story about miracle healings. Is the shift wasn't just intended for you, it was really intended to bless everybody that you'll encounter for the rest of your entire life. And I think it's spectacular.
The thing for me, and I don't want to give anybody the impression that I'm perfect, that I came out of there and I don't make mistakes. I make mistakes every day. I still struggle with getting upset, my buttons being pushed, and going through this divorce has not been pretty. I mean, we just sold our house and I got to find a place to live. And I went and looked today and I was just depressed. It's like, I'm giving up a 3,000 square foot house for a 1,200 square apartment that I'm going to be confined. It's like, so immediately I think, this is what this is all about. This is what I'm living on this life for. This is what I got to go through. This isn't what I envisioned when I retired. I'm losing half of my wealth. I'm going to have to change my approach. But the focus has switched from me to others. Before this happened, the focus is on what's Craig going to get out of life. We're going to go travel. We're going to do all this. And I'm going to reap the benefits of my hard work all these years. And it's about me. Well, for whatever reason, God said, no, it's not about you. It's about him. And it's about what am I going to do to let others know that there's a better life for them.
Yeah.
That they don't have to live in this depression. They don't have to deal with anxiety. They can get help.
Yeah.
And be a fruit. That's what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be a fruit.
Right.
And let your fire and yourself be seen by other people. So my dedication, and I've told Dr. Brooks, my dedication from now on, I'm coming back out in September to be with people out there and to share my story and to walk hand in hand with those that are struggling, just to say, there is a better life. You don't have to be mirrored down in the mud. And I had a guy tell me, he says, what am I going to do once I'm not depressed anymore?
Yeah.
It's like, live. You're going to live.
Right.
But he says, but I got all these people that pat me on the back and say, we're so sorry you're going through this depression. And I'm so used to that. Now, how am I supposed to react? Well, my answer was, you're going to live. You're going to enjoy things and see it from a different perspective. And so that's my goal for people. I've been able to share some of my stories to some people that I had no idea I would share the story to. A carpenter at my house fixing a door, and I just felt led to tell him the story. And in the story, he says, you know what? I was where you were at just 6 months ago. I'm going through a divorce. Wow. And he says, I'm so glad you told me that story. He says, I never got to where you were at, but I thought about it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And I had no one to talk to. And he goes, for whatever reason, you were put in my life today. You told your story. And I'm so glad you did, because I don't want to do what you did. And I don't want my family to experience what your family experienced. And I give God the credit. I felt led to tell him. And, I may never see this guy again in my life, but the fact that I was able to share that with him, and I'm not taking credit for myself. This isn't a pat on the back for me. I'm not seeking any glory out of my story. In fact, I'm embarrassed. I'm feel guilty about my story. I've hurt a lot of people. but I'm not going to dwell on that hurt and pain anymore. It is what it is. So now it's rise above that and do something because I have a life and an opportunity to do that. I may not live 2 more days. And if I don't share this story with people and to say there's hope for you, that there is a place in Utah that cares about individuals, they care about their life, they care about what's going on deep inside. And I stay in touch with the people I went there with on a regular basis. We Zoom every week. We chat. I talk to my providers out there. I text them every week and tell them how much I love them and miss them. Can't wait to be with them again. And there's that chance for everybody. And I'll put this in perspective. It's expensive. And that's why I am with Dr. Brooks wanting to dedicate the rest of my life to help people and to figure out how we can affordability for people to go.
Yeah.
Because insurance doesn't exist for a lot of people. And a lot of states like Iowa, where I live, have no help for mental health. And so you can spend a lot more money other places, but I guarantee you, you're not going to get the one-on-one and heartfelt attention that I receive there at the bridge. And so Steve told me, what's your life worth? You're going to live 20 more years. Is $1,000 too much to spend a year for your life?
Yeah.
And when you put it in that perspective, I can blow $1,000 on stupid stuff, fast food. Doesn't take very long to have $1,000 on fast food.
So true.
Yeah. So what's your life worth? And what are you going to do with your life? That is why people need to go and hear the message, to get the help, and then go home and put it into practice and hopefully send somebody else to get the help. And this just pyramids keeps building, and life can be changed for a lot of people if we just can share this story, that there are people who care and there is a method to this madness. It's not going to work for everybody, but it worked for me, and I don't regret the 21 days I spent there. In fact, I hated coming home, and if I could, I'd come back out there for another 21 days just because there's more stuff that I need to learn. And in the moment you're grasping all this information, and it's like, whoa, now I need to go home, process it, then go back and get that information again and even see it in a better light. But
yeah, we have a big joke as a staff. We want to be part of every session, and just to kind of let everybody know, the bridge is a multidisciplinary facility where you come and live with us. And we have, we have acupuncturist, Reiki master, great yogi, really good nutritionist, good chiropractor, great physical therapy, really good personal training, good massage, great LCSW counseling, good high-level clinical psychotherapy. We work with wild Mustangs. We have, lots of trips out. Almost every morning we're out somewhere. Learn how to celebrate, be grateful, move your body, and sound bathing. It's just the list goes on, but it really is a reset for all those systems. And I appreciate your giving us good marks for that, Craig. But I'll just finish up by saying I'm so appreciative of your time. I know you're busy. I want the world to be exposed to some of these miracle healings of these beautiful men and women, and you're certainly one of them. And I know we'll be friends forever. So that we'll talk soon. But I'm really glad to have you on and let you share your story. And I'll bet you that somebody who listens to this will exactly need it, and they'll be led to it. And thank you and bless you for taking your time. So thanks, Craig.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and out of this experience, I've got a new outlook on my life. But I've also built friendships for life, and I cherish you as one of my dearest friends. And I can't thank you enough for what the bridge did for me. And if someone will just take the risk and to say, there's something better for me, maybe this is the place to start that process. And it's not going to be a miracle wand that we all expect, but if you go with the right mindset and are open, you can't help but feel like you've been blessed and will never regret that opportunity. That's for sure. It's just what you do with it once you take it home with you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I love the generosity of the comments, and hopefully we're all, at least somewhat deserving. But yeah, that's very kind. But I can't wait to see what you keep doing. I can't wait to see what the foundation does and where your new adventures take you. And like I say, we'll be talking a lot too, so we'll be able to stay in close touch. But thanks so much, Craig.
And I would say, the bridge has my phone number. I've released my information, and anybody can feel free to follow up with me, email, phone call. You just want to chat, or if you're struggling with something and I can direct you somewhere or give you some words of wisdom, a tidbit that might get you over the threshold. But take a chance on the bridge. That's my message today. If anything comes out of this, is that take a chance on Dr. Brooks and his staff and people like me who have been helped, that it'll be a decision you will never regret.
Thank
that
you.
that I can guarantee.
I just wish I would.
I just wish I didn't have to go through that experience of what got me there. That someone would have helped me when I was younger. And the thing that was amazing, Dr. Brooks, is the youngest person we had there when I was there was 20 years old.
Wow.
And I tell that individual every week, he is so lucky.
Yeah.
That at age 20, he figured out he had issues to deal with. So when he's 67, he's going to be a better person than I am because he hit it head on when he was young. And that's the nice thing about it. You don't have to wait till you're 67 to change. You can do it when you're young. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you again.
Dr. Brooks, privilege anytime. I'm here to help in any way. And for those people who think this is scripted, I never script. I give speeches all the time for continuing education. I don't write notes. I talk off the top of my head. So this comes from my heart.
Same. We just agreed to chat today, and I love it. So I appreciate. And you heard everybody. He's willing to give his phone number. So if you want to contact us and talk to Craig, it sounds like he's more than willing. So Craig, thank you for that too.
Yeah. All right. Good to see you. Look forward to being out there again.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah. Stay in touch.
We'll do it. Thank you, Craig.
Yeah. Bye-bye.